Welcome to the Mad Human channel, and tonight we flow backward, farther than memory, deeper than myth, and into something far more ancient than time itself. Tonight we follow the story of water, not just the kind that fills your cup or falls from the sky, but the water that carved valleys, built civilizations, shaped planets, and once whispered across the cooling skin of a newborn Earth. This isn't just a story about oceans or rivers. It's the story of life, of motion, of silence and return, because water is not simply something we drink, it's something we are. It moves through us, it remembers us, and long after we're gone, it will continue, flowing, carrying, becoming. Before there were forests, before there was breath, before any heart had learned to beat, there was water. Before the continents knew their names, before the stars took root in the night, water wandered freely across stone and sky, ancient and unnamed. It did not need permission to begin, it simply did. It arrived in pieces, in vapour, in shards of ice riding comets across the black silence of the universe. It fell to Earth in violence and in wonder, crashing into a molten world that hadn't yet cooled. And Earth, open and waiting, received it, the way a lung receives breath, the way a child receives silence. Slowly, endlessly, patiently, water became Earth's first memory. It covered the wounds, it filled the cracks, it quieted the fire, and in time it became the cradle of life itself. The first oceans weren't blue, they were black, heated by the deep breath of the planet below. They churned and boiled and whispered through hydrothermal vents, where life began not with light, but with warmth. Life wasn't born in the sky, it was born in the sea, in the dark, in silence, tiny, fragile, unseen, but stubborn. And from that stubbornness came everything. Over billions of years, water became the painter of possibility. It carried cells, it cradled them, it shaped them, it taught them how to move, how to feed, how to become more than one. And the ocean, vast, deep, unknowable, kept them safe. No storm above could touch them, no sun too bright could burn them. In water, life was shielded, and life listened. The ocean never needed to speak. It moved. That was enough. It rolled and curled and pulled and gave. It dissolved stone into salt, light into shimmer, and breath into tide. And when life was ready, truly ready, it did something unimaginable. It left. It crawled from the water not to escape but to explore. Fins became limbs, gills became lungs. And suddenly Earth had walkers, clawing up beaches, blinking at the sun, wondering what it meant to breathe without floating. But even then, they didn't leave water behind, they brought it with them. In blood, in cells, in the rhythm of their pulse. You're not separate from the sea, you're its echo. And even as creatures walked, stumbled, evolved, and multiplied across this rough new land, the memory of the ocean stayed inside them. It pulsed in their veins, it rocked in their cells, and it called to them, always, in the roar of waves, in the pull of the moon, in the way their tears still tasted like the sea. Water did not punish them for leaving. It watched. It followed. It became rain, mist, snow, steam. It rose into clouds, crossed mountains, and fell into valleys where rivers were waiting to remember. It seeped into the soil, carving passageways below the surface where roots would one day drink and trees would stretch toward the sky. And wherever it went, it shaped the land, smoothed the stone, carried the story forward, not as a witness, but as the story itself. The mountains that now crown the earth were once no more than seabeds, pushed upward by tectonic breath. Their folded peaks still hold fossils of creatures who once floated in silence. Their ridges are scars left by the sea as it withdrew. Water has always been the sculptor, not loud but unrelenting. It carves canyons not by force but by patience. It moves stone by wearing it down with time and tenderness. It hollows caves, shapes valleys, creates islands, and reshapes continents. Not with violence, but with presence. And humans, when they arrived, built their lives beside it. They watched it move and called it sacred. They knew they would die without it. They knew nothing could grow without its gift. Early humans did not have maps. They followed rivers. They did not build roads. They followed the flow. Water led them to food, to shelter, to warmth. And when they looked up at the sky and saw it darken, they prayed, not for light, but for rain. Because rain meant life. Rain meant crops. Rain meant tomorrow. Entire civilizations bloomed along rivers, the Nile, the Tigris, the Indus, the Yangtze, not by chance but by design. Water gave not just survival but story. Every myth, every song, every god they created had something to say about the sea, the flood, the river, the storm. Because they knew what we often forget. Without water, there is no memory, there is no breath, there is no return. And still, water kept moving. It did not ask for thanks. It did not seek praise. It only flowed. From cloud to mountain, from spring to delta, from glacial melt to jungle stream, it carried minerals, seeds, stories. It connected what seemed separate. It nourished what had no voice, even when it dried up. In drought, in heat, in grief, it returned. Always. Eventually. It returned as fog, as dew, as morning frost on grass not yet awake. Because water does not end. It only changes shape. It was water that taught us how to gather. Not just in need, but in trust. Villages became towns because of wells. Fires were built near streams. Paths were carved where springs bubbled from stone. It was the riverbanks that saw our first tools, our first shelters, our first songs. Children were born beside water. The dead were laid to rest near it too. Water became not just survival, it became memory. And so we listened. We listened to the burble of brooks, to the crash of waterfalls, to the slow churn of rivers in flood. These were not just sounds, they were rhythms. They were reminders that time was moving, and so were we. And water, ever the quiet teacher, began to shape more than our habits. It shaped our beliefs. The ancient Egyptians watched the Nile swell each year and saw in it not randomness, but divinity. The Hindus saw in the Ganges not just a river, but a goddess. The Greeks gave their waters names and moods. The Norse told of oceans that swallowed worlds. And the early Chinese mapped the world not by land, but by the movement of water through it. Because they knew, as we once all knew, that water was not just part of the earth, it was the earth. It moved between sky and stone, between root and rain. And to ignore it was to forget the language of life itself, so we built with it. We made canals, aqueducts, reservoirs. We channeled its flow to grow wheat, to raise rice, to cool temples, to spin wheels. The Romans carved stone to move it across hills. The Persians tapped into underground rivers with tunnels that pulsed with darkness and blessing. In the east, terraced hills rose like stairs to heaven, catching water as it fell from the clouds and guiding it into life. Entire cities were designed not around palaces, but around water, because water was the real king, and still is. But water has never belonged to anyone. It only visits. It stays for a while, in your skin, your blood, your breath, and then it moves on. The water you drink today is the same water dinosaurs swallowed, the same water that once floated through the air of forgotten forests, the same water that once sat in the eye of a storm over a silent sea. It remembers everything, every place it's been, every creature it's touched. It holds history in its silence, and when you hold it in your hands, you hold the entire story of Earth. And yet we rarely pause to thank it. We turn the tap, and it comes. We wash, we boil, we drink, we let it run. We forget it costs nothing to us, but it costs everything to life, because nothing grows without it, nothing moves, nothing breathes. And though we are made of muscle and bone and thought, we are mostly water, held briefly in form. And across time, as kingdoms rose and fell like waves, water remained. Quiet, ancient, unchanged. Empires carved stone cities across deserts and mountains, but each one began beside a stream or a spring. They may have worshipped different gods, spoken different tongues, raised different flags, but they all needed water. Every war ever fought was interrupted, if only briefly, by thirst. Every peace was toasted with something poured. The first farmers who coaxed wheat from wild land did so with hands wet from morning dew. The first healers carried bowls of rainwater into dark huts and washed wounds with the sky. And the first poets sat beside rivers and let the current carry their thoughts away, shaping language not by structure, but by flow. Water did not teach us conquest. It taught us surrender. It taught us to listen, to follow, to wait. The flood always comes, the drought always breaks. It reminded us that we do not control the most important things, we cooperate with them. The river bends and we bend with it. The tide pulls and we pull back. The rain does not come on command, and when it does not ask who is rich or poor, king or beggar. It falls freely, equally, truthfully. And when it does not come, when the skies stay dry and the land cracks open in hunger, it humbles us, reminds us of how little separates abundance from desperation. And still, it returns, always. Sometimes in drops, sometimes in storms, sometimes as a mist you can barely feel, a breath on your skin from a sky that once held oceans, sometimes as snow that silences everything it touches. Water has moods, but it has no enemy. It is not cruel, though it has taken much. It is not kind, though it has given more than anything else ever has. It simply is. It gives, it takes, it transforms, and we, in our short lives, build everything around its coming and going. It flows through aqueducts, fountains, faucets. It travels through copper pipes and mountain stones. It sits in glasses on bedside tables and in the marrow of your bones. It fills the oceans and your lungs when you're born. It floats in clouds over deserts, waiting. It sits beneath the surface of Mars, frozen, silent, watching. It whispers through rainforest canopies and crashes against black rocks in distant Arctic coves. Water does not age, it only moves. And as it moves, it weaves us all together, every person, every story, every cell. And one day, when this planet is quiet again, long after we're gone, water will still be here. It will rise and fall and rise again. The rivers will still chase the sea will still lift toward the sky will still burst open in blessing, and a new story will begin. And even now, as we walk paved roads and sleep behind glass, water is never far. It still waits behind walls curled inside pipes, hidden beneath concrete. We've disguised it with plumbing, captured it in tanks, named it utilities and measured it in litres, but it hasn't changed. It's the same ancient element, the same river that once touched the foot of a mammoth, the same droplets that once swirled inside a trilobite's tide pool. It is the oldest traveller in the world, the quietest witness, the one who has seen everything and forgotten nothing. When you lift a glass to your lips, do you ever wonder where it's been? That water, that clear invisible ribbon in your hand, may have fallen as rain on an African savanna long before pyramids rose. It may have flowed beneath the feet of a woolly rhinoceros. It may have floated through the lungs of a blue whale still alive today. It may have slept inside a glacier, trapped for 10,000 years in frozen stillness, before melting again into sunlight. Water doesn't just travel, it returns. And in its return it brings stories we'll never fully hear. But we feel them, in every sip, in every storm, in every tear we shed when words are not enough. Because water holds more than life, it holds emotion. We cry with it, we cleanse with it, we baptize the beginning of life with it, and send off the dead with bowls of it gently poured. In every culture, water means something sacred, something beyond the body, something older than belief. We scatter ashes into rivers not just for tradition, but because something inside us understands. Water knows the way home, and in our bodies, these fragile, fleeting vessels, water makes up most of what we are. It is not just in us, it is us. It keeps our hearts soft, our blood moving, our thoughts alight. We are walking oceans, breathing tides. And when we thirst, it's not just our mouths that long, it's our memory. Some ancient part of us remembering what it means to flow, to float, to be carried. And yet, how quickly we forget. How quickly we turn away. We build walls to keep floods out, but sometimes we forget that it was floods that once shaped our world. We curse the rain, not knowing how many seeds it awakens. We waste the water that others walk miles to find. We poison it with the very things we once praised it for cleansing. And still that it flows, still it forgives, still it returns. Even when we don't deserve it, water comes back. Shall I continue this gentle narration? We are still flowing within part one, still building toward that deep. Because water is not loyal to one form. It is not defined by what holds it. It seeps through every boundary, bends around every obstacle, slips into every crack. You can try to confine it, to capture it, to make it yours, but it will always find a way back to itself. A drop on your window may fall into the earth, rise again into a cloud and return 1,000 miles away as snow on someone's rooftop. The river you see may have once been a glacier, then vapour, then rain, then a tear on someone else's face before becoming the stream that winds quietly past your feet. Water never ends, it simply transforms. And in that transformation, it teaches us the most important lesson we keep forgetting, that change is not the end of identity, it is part of it. But even knowing this, we try to own it. We measure it, we buy it, we sell it, we trap it in plastic and stack it on shelves, calling it clean, calling it ours. We drain it from the ground faster than it can rise. We poison it and call the damage invisible because the surface still looks the same. We treat it like a commodity, forgetting it is a companion. And yet, it returns. It always does. Because water does not need us. We need it. And while it can outlast our mistakes, it cannot outlast our carelessness forever. The ancient earth knew how to listen to water. Forests once formed entire ecosystems around its seasonal moods. Animals migrated with its pull. Flowers bloomed only when it arrived. And humans, before they learned conquest, knew how to wait. They watched the skies. They built terraces to catch the clouds. They stored the rain with reverence, and when the rain didn't come, they prayed, not out of desperation, but out of recognition. They remembered what we forget now. Water does not answer to us. It is not a servant. It is a force, and it is a gift. Even now, when we fly in metal tubes above the clouds or speak across oceans in seconds, water is still the quiet rhythm beneath our progress. The cooling systems in our machines, the mist that keeps crops alive, the fog that settles before dawn on cities too busy to notice. It moves silently across borders, beneath walls, through pipes and pores and sky. It connects things we think are separate. It reminds us that no matter how far we go, we are still part of something much larger, much older, much more alive. So the next time you lift a glass to your lips, pause. Remember, you are not just drinking water, you are drinking history. You are drinking stars, you are drinking the sky's memory of oceans that no longer exist. You are drinking a story, older than language, older than bones, that has waited billions of years to reach you. And in that sip, the story continues. And even as our cities rose, as bricks replaced soil and glass replaced leaves, we could not escape water's pull. We built fountains in our squares, aqueducts in our walls, wells beneath our homes. The sound of water trickling became the background music of civilization. Children played beside it, elders gathered around it, lovers whispered beside it, watching their reflections blur in its shimmer. Water has always known how to hold what we cannot say. It reflects us back to ourselves, not with judgment, but with stillness. It shows us what we carry, what we've forgotten, what we long for. And in that reflection, we find something soft, something honest, something deeply, deeply human. But water was never just gentle. It has teeth too. And we learned this over and over with each flood that swallowed homes, each wave that rose too high, each drought that turned the soil to dust. Entire cities have vanished beneath water's return. Islands have been washed clean. Rivers have jumped their beds and rewritten maps. The same force that quenches your thirst can tear your world apart in minutes. Not because it is cruel, but because it is wild. And wild things do not apologize for being what they are. They simply exist, with their own rhythm, their own rage, their own mercy. And so we learnt to respect it, not always, not everywhere. But in the old stories, in the oldest places, that respect still lingers. In Japan, rivers are greeted with prayer. In Peru, mountain springs are dressed in offerings. In West Africa, lakes are considered alive and listened to. In the Arctic, frozen rivers hold ancestral spirits. These are not just superstitions. They are echoes of a truth we once lived with every day, that water is not just something we use, it's something we belong to. And perhaps the greatest gift water gives us is this, presence. It cannot be rushed. You cannot hurry a stream. You can only move with it, match its pace, listen to its sound. And in doing so, something in you begins to slow, to soften, to remember. When we sit by rivers, when we walk through rain, when we swim in the sea, our minds quiet, not because the world changes, but because we do. We return to the rhythm we are born from, a rhythm that isn't measured in minutes, but in movement, in return, in breath, because even your breath is part of it. Each inhale, moisture on the air, each exhale, vapor returned. You are not separate. You're a wave in the great sea of being, rising, falling, dissolving, returning. And water knows your name. Because if you truly sit with it just once, you'll notice something. That water doesn't only reflect the world around you, it reflects the world within you. It shows you movement, not just on the surface, but in the spaces you've tried to keep still. Your fears, your memories, your longings, they ripple too. A lake doesn't hide its disturbances, it lets the ripple run its course. And maybe that's what water teaches best: how to move without force, how to bend without breaking, how to return without shame. You can learn a lifetime of wisdom from the way a single stream turns around a stone, not by fighting it, but by flowing past, around, and through. And if you follow water long enough, it always brings you somewhere sacred, somewhere forgotten, somewhere older than language. A quiet pool, a waterfall hidden in ferns, a spring that rises from the bones of the earth without sound. And when you arrive there, something ancient stirs, not in the world, but in you. You feel smaller, slower, more real. The noise inside your head fades. You breathe differently, not deeper, not louder, just more true. Because water does not demand, it invites. It calls you to remember something you were born knowing, that you are not a machine. You're not meant to race endlessly forward. You're a current, a rhythm, a tide, meant to move and rest and return again. That's why we're drawn to it. That's why people build homes near rivers and cities by the sea. That's why we pay to stay in hotels with fountains and sleep better to the sound of rain. It's not just about beauty. It's about memory. Water reminds your body of its origin. It reminds your breath how to soften. It reminds your thoughts how to settle. You were never meant to be dry inside. You were meant to carry oceans, not in weight, but in wisdom. And still, we've tried to tame it, straighten its path, contain it in walls, dry it up, push it underground, pollute it and call it progress. And in doing so, we've forgotten what it means to listen. We've forgotten the wildness that raised us. We've forgotten that the moment water disappears, so do we. But water has patience, the kind of patience only something immortal could have. It does not shout, it does not chase, it waits, it sickles, it evaporates and returns, and one day, maybe in a century, maybe in a breath, it will come back to places we thought we had erased. Because you cannot erase water, you can only pause it, delay it. But even then, it is watching, remembering, preparing its return. It's strange how easily we forget what gives us life. We build walls to keep the sea away, we dig deep into the earth to redirect rivers, we seal our homes from rain and hide water behind metal and code, and yet, for all our invention, we still carry it. In our blood, in our skin, in our lungs, we are vessels that leak and breathe and sweat and cry. The most advanced machine we've ever built, the human body, is still more water than anything else. We travel in steel and light, but inside we are still tied. And in cities, where noise never stops and light never sleeps, water still waits. Trickles below sidewalks, hums through the bones of buildings, gathers in rooftops and gutters and storm drains. But we no longer see it. We no longer kneel by rivers. We no longer speak to rain. We watch forecasts as data, not as promise. The rain is not a blessing, so it's a delay. The snow is not a gift, and it's a nuisance. The flood is not a warning, it's an insurance claim. And in this forgetting, something sacred slips quietly from our hands. But water does not hold resentment. It has nothing to prove. It continues to move. It still arrives each morning on leaves, even in the heart of the city. It still fogs our windows, still swirls in our kettles, still rises as steam when our breath meets winter. It finds us, no matter how far we try to separate ourselves. Because we are not separate. We never have been. And yet we treat water like it's infinite, like it will always be there. But water, though it returns, is not guaranteed. It is not endless. And in many places, it is already disappearing. It's shrinking. Rivers once wide enough to drown empires now run dry before reaching the sea. Aquifers that took millennia to fill are being drained in decades. Lakes vanish. Rings go silent. And still, we do not listen. Still, we pour it into the streets, spray it over concrete, waste it with a casual hand as if the rain will always come. But the rain doesn't always come. And when it doesn't, everything stops. It doesn't matter how advanced we are, how many satellites we launch, how many systems we automate. Without water, the world halts. Crops fail, power fades, fire spreads, disease returns, fear grows, and in those moments, brief, terrifying moments, we remember. We remember how much we need something we cannot make, something we cannot replicate in a lab or pull from a screen, something that only the earth can give, and only in its own time. And maybe that's the hardest lesson for us to accept, that we are not in control, not of water, not of nature, not even of ourselves when thirst begins to speak. All our cities, all our towers, all our progress, none of it survives without the soft sound of rain on dry soil. We are still the same fragile creatures who once danced for the monsoon, still the same children of rivers and fog, still the same breath held in a body borrowed from the ocean. We forgot what it cost to bring water close. We built machines to move it faster, farther, higher. We paved the riverbeds, dammed the valleys, rerouted entire lifetimes of flow. We told water where it could go, where it couldn't. We called it infrastructure. We called it civilization. And for a while, it worked. The cities thrived, faucets flowed, crops grew where there had once been dust. Fountains danced in public squares while fields far away cracked and withered. Pools sparkled in deserts, while some villages drank from the same bucket all week. And still we didn't question it, because water obeyed. But water doesn't truly obey, it only cooperates until it doesn't. Until it rises, not with rage but with rhythm. Until it finds the old paths it once carved through land, the ancient routes it remembers, older than any building or road. And when it returns, it doesn't ask for permission. It comes back like memory, full, sudden, undeniable. And then we remember. When the streets fill, when the fields drown, when the taps run dry, we remember how much of our safety is borrowed, how much of our control is illusion, how water, gentle and invisible, still decides how the story unfolds. And yet, it never punishes, it never holds back out of spite. It still rains, it still fills the air in waves of humidity that press gently against your skin. It still clings to windows in the morning, fogging them like dreams you almost remember. It still listens when no one speaks, it still reflects stars that don't know your name. It still curls into steam when you boil rice for dinner, still sings through your pipes, still waits behind the glass of every mirror. Because even as we misuse it, misunderstand it, misname it, water knows what we have forgotten, that we are not separate from the earth. We are what it dreams when it rains. And maybe that's why water makes us quiet, why we lower our voices by lakes, why we fall into silence watching waves, why we close our eyes in the shower and feel something deeper than warmth. Because water remembers what we forget, that we came from stillness, that peace is not the absence of movement, it is movement that follows no fear, that the same river that shaped the rocks will one day shape us too, not because it wants to, but because that is its way. And so we must listen, not because water needs our ears, but because we need to remember how to hear. We need to remember how to sit beside it, not to use it, not to own it, but to feel it, to thank it, to let it teach us again how to flow, how to yield, how to return. Because even now, even in the face of everything we've done, water has not left us. Not fully, not yet. It still circles, still waits, but its patterns are changing, its balance is shifting. Storms come where sun once lived. Dryness cracks lands that once held rivers. Seas are swelling, eating coastlines grain by grain, year by year, inch by inch. We have warmed the world, and the water remembers. It melts from mountain tops that once held it in sacred sleep. It swells in the oceans, rising quietly, creeping into streets we thought would never flood. And still we build, we pump, we pour, we call it progress. We forget what lies beneath. We pretend we're above water, but we are not. We never were. We are floating always, in pipes, in planning, in hope. Our world is more liquid than land. Our bodies more water than anything else. And still we act as if the river bends for us, as if the rain waits for our schedule, as if the earth owes us more than it already gave. But one day, if we continue like this, the silence will speak louder than the flood. The drought will teach more than the storm, and we will be forced to listen, not with our minds, but with our mouths dry, our crops withered, our skies empty. But it doesn't have to come to that. Not yet. There is still time, there is still rain, and there are still springs that bubble quietly in forgotten hillsides, still wells that wait with deep, cool breath. There are still aquifers cradled in stone like sleeping giants, still droplets clinging to morning leaves, still lakes so clear you can see straight through to the beginning, still snowflakes falling like slow forgiveness. There is still something left to save, and maybe that's all we need, a reminder, a returning, a change not of science or system but of story, because how we speak of water shapes how we treat it. If we call it a resource, we will use it. If we call it sacred, we will protect it. If we call it ours, we will drain it. But if we remember that it never belonged to us, that we belong to it, then maybe, just maybe, we'll start to walk more softly. Maybe we'll teach our children not just to conserve but to wonder, not just to save but to kneel, to listen for the sound of it beneath city noise, to feel for it in the way the wind carries rain, to notice when it is missing, and to celebrate when it returns. Because water will always return if we make space for it. In our land, in our homes, in our hearts. And maybe that's how it happens. Not all at once, not with headlines or declarations, but slowly, quietly, like a creek finding its old bed after years of drought. Like someone pausing before turning on the tap. Like a child holding their hand under a waterfall for the first time. That remembering doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be real. Maybe it starts in schools, where clean water is more than a subject, it's a gift. Maybe it starts in gardens, where rain is caught, not wasted. Maybe it begins with people walking beside rivers, not to cross them, not to take from them, but just to be near something that never stopped being alive. Because water is alive. Not in the way we are. Not with thoughts or names, but with movement, with purpose, with memory. And when we treat it as living, we begin to see everything differently. The ocean becomes not a boundary, but a story still being written. The river becomes not a channel, but a voice. The well becomes not a hole in the ground, but a mouth of the earth, still speaking, if we'll listen. And when we start to listen, we stop needing to control. We stop needing to conquer. We start learning how to coexist. And maybe that's the next chapter. Not technology, not mastery, but humility. A way of living that doesn't push water harder or faster or deeper, but with it. A way of building that follows the curves of the land instead of flattening them. A way of farming that honours the rain instead of demanding it. A way of drinking that includes gratitude in every sip. This doesn't mean less, it means more. More awareness, more presence, more awe. Because that's what water wants from us most, not ownership, but attention. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't take much. Just pause, just look, just remember the next time you fill a glass, stop for half a second. The next time you hear rain tapping on the roof, listen for one breath longer. The next time you wash your hands, feel the warmth. That's all it takes, just enough stillness to let water speak. And when it speaks, it doesn't use words. It doesn't need to. It speaks in motion, in memory, in miracle. And so we return, not to where we started, but to what we forgot, to the first ripple, the first cloud, the first tear. Water has brought us a long way, across oceans of time, through storms and silence, through ancient rain and modern drought, through forgetting and remembering. And now it brings us here, to a quiet moment, a glass in your hand, a stream outside your window, a lake catching the sun like it always has, like it always will. And in that moment, if you truly look, you'll see what was always true. That water is not just passing through you, it's becoming you. Because in every living thing, water is the thread that ties the story together. It flows through roots and veins, through leaf and limb, through heart and river. When a tree reaches upward, it does so with water. When a child grows, it does so with water. When you dream, your brain, floating gently in liquid memory, dreams through water. And when you cry, your grief returns to the sea. What else on this planet touches every form of life and never asks for anything in return? And maybe that's why it humbles us. Not because it is powerful, but because it is pure. It does not care if you are king or farmer. It does not ask who you voted for. It does not check your title, your wealth, your beliefs. It simply comes, it simply gives. And in that giving, it reminds us how to live, not in separation, but in connection, not in fear, but in flow. Water does not resist. It does not grasp. It moves, it adapts, it shapes, and in doing so, it survives everything. We speak of strength as something loud, something hard, something that stands tall. But water, soft, quiet, shapeless, wears down mountains. Water, and unseen in the air, becomes storms. Water, patient always and finds its way back to itself. What could be stronger than that? And so maybe this is what we must learn. Not to rise above the world, but to move with it. To stop fearing the storm and instead learn how to dance inside the rain. To stop chasing more and start noticing what flows right beside us. The faucet, the puddle, the cloud, the cup, these are not separate. They are the same story, the same circle, the same silence that spoke to the first fish, the same rhythm that carved the Grand Canyon, the same voice that says gently, always, return. Return to presence, return to wonder, return to the water. And so you lift a glass, just water, clear, ordinary, silent. But inside that stillness lives everything. This sip was once cloud, was once glacier, was once salt and thunder and river. It has fallen as snow on mountains you've never seen. It has waited in deep aquifers under deserts older than language. It has passed through roots, through skin, through lungs, and not just yours, but millions before you. And now it's here, in your hand, in your throat, in your blood. This is not magic, it's memory. Water is how the earth remembers itself. It is how time carries forward what the land has let go. What you drink today was known by dinosaurs. It cooled volcanoes. It sat in pools where the first sparks of life first danced into being. It moved through empires and through silence. It washed the feet of prophets and carried the ashes of the forgotten. It rained over ships that never returned. It floated in the eyes of lovers who said goodbye. And now it fills the cells in your mouth, your bones, your heart. This is how the past touches the present, quietly, completely. And so we begin to understand we were never separate. Not from each other, not from the world, not from time. You are made of water. And so is the person across from you, and the animal, and the leaf, and the cloud. We are all versions of the same thing, walking, growing, breathing, evaporating. Water was never just a story. It was the storyteller. And when you leave this life, one day softly, your body will return to the earth, and the water inside you will move on. It will rise, drift, fall again. It will become rain, then river, then life again. Not as you, but because of you, and nothing will be lost, only transformed, because water does not end. Only we do. And even then, only for a moment. And so we sit, you, me, all of us. Just a body, just a breath, just water, held for a little while in the shape of a human. And it's strange, isn't it? How something so vast, so ancient, so wild could find its way into something so fragile and stay and move and pulse quietly in our veins, asking for nothing more than care, than remembrance, than a moment of stillness where we finally notice it. Because water is always there, waiting. Beneath your skin, beneath your feet, above your head, it surrounds you, it fills you, it is you, it does not care who you are. It does not care how much you earn or what you believe. It will give itself to you freely. It always has, it always will, until we forget how to receive it, but we haven't forgotten, not completely. We still lean into the sound of rain. We still pause beside rivers. We still ache when droughts come. We still understand somewhere deep and unspoken that we are not separate from the flow, we are the flow. And maybe, just maybe, this is what water wants us to remember most. Not that we should worship it or fear it or even control it, but that we should honour it, notice it, move with it, like the waves, like the mist, like the quiet way it returned, again and again and again. So when you wake tomorrow and fill your glass, remember this: you are holding the ocean, you are holding time, you are holding 1 billion years of memory, passed from sky to soil, from leaf to cloud, from glacier to breath. And in that glass is the very reason you're here. And when you lift it, slowly with care, let it be more than hydration. Let it be reverence. Let it be connection. Let it be a soft, silent thank you to the thing that made all life possible. To the thing that asks for nothing, but gives you everything. Even now, long after the last word settles, water continues. Beneath your home, it flows, silently, steadily. Above you, it drifts, gathering, cooling, falling in places you may never see. It beads on leaves in forests untouched. It dances on the backs of whales as they rise for breath. It gathers in the fur of sleeping animals curled beneath the stars. It rests in the petals of flowers that open without witness. And still, it returns to the mountains, to the gutters, to the bowls we place at our feet and call enough. There is no final destination for water. It moves in circles, not lines. It teaches that nothing is ever truly lost, only changed. Forgotten for a while, maybe, but always waiting to be found again. The puddle becomes cloud, the snow becomes stream, the tear becomes salt, and the quiet becomes memory. So when you feel lost, when you feel like too much has changed or passed or disappeared, find water. Sit beside it. Place your hand in it. Listen. It will remind you that you are not broken, that everything you are is still moving, that grief, like rivers, finds new paths, that healing, like rain, takes time to fall. And if you are still, truly still, you might feel it. The soft pulse, the deep rhythm, the truth, older than anything we've built, that you are not just made of water, you are held by it. Always have been, always will be. And even now, as you sit with that sip still inside you, the story keeps unfolding. In your breath, in your bloodstream, in your memory. You begin to notice how much of your life has been shaped by something you cannot hold for long. Every bath that soothed you, every storm that made you stop and watch, every cup of tea shared across silence, every puddle you jumped in as a child, every time your mother wiped your tears, every time someone whispered, "Drink this," when you were sick or scared or tired. Water has always arrived when words could not. It has been there in your beginnings, in your healing, in your grief. It has held your history more gently than you have. It has never needed to be thanked, yet it has never stopped giving. And perhaps that is what makes it holy. Not that it's rare, but that it's constant, quiet, humble, unseen until you need it. And then everything depends on it. And isn't that how love works too? Isn't that how time moves? And isn't that how meaning flows through this life? Not with loud declarations, but with presence, with returning, with soft things doing the hardest work day after day after day. Water doesn't shout, it shapes. Water doesn't race, it remembers. Water doesn't ask for more, it becomes enough. And maybe that's all we need to do too, because what began in silence, in the first steam rising off a cooling world, has found its way here, to you, to this moment, to this study made of stories and salt. And that's the beauty of it, that something so ancient, so vast, so infinite, would choose to pass through you, to become part of your day, your drink, your breath, and then move on, as if to say, "I trust you," not to hold it forever, but to carry it well, to honour it while it stays, and to let it go when it must continue. And so you do. You drink, you breathe, you move, and water moves with you, never clinging, never rushing, never judging, only flowing, only listening, only being. And in that rhythm you begin to understand, well, that this isn't just the story of water. It's the story of being alive. It's the story of learning how to flow through change, through time, through everything. It's the story of how the smallest thing can carry the greatest weight. It's the story of how something invisible can hold the memory of the world. It's the story of you. And like water, you are always becoming, always returning, always enough. And so you lift a glass, just water, clear, ordinary, silent. But inside that stillness lives everything. This sip was once cloud, was once glacier, was once salt and thunder and river. It has fallen as snow on mountains you've never seen. It has waited in deep aquifers under deserts older than language. It has passed through roots, through skin, through lungs, not just yours, but millions before you. And now it's here, in your hand, in your throat, your blood. This is not magic, it's memory. Water is how the earth remembers itself. It is how time carries forward what the land has let go. What you drink today was known by dinosaurs. It cooled volcanoes. It sat in pools where the first sparks of life first danced into being. It moved through empires and through silence. It washed the feet of prophets and carried the ashes of the forgotten. It rained over ships that never returned. It floated in the eyes of lovers who said goodbye. And now it fills the cells in your mouth, your bones, your heart. This is how the past touches the present, quietly, completely. And so we begin to understand that we were never separate. Not from each other, not from the world, not from time. You are made of water, and so is the person across from you, and the animal, and the leaf, and the cloud. We are all versions of the same thing, walking, growing, breathing, evaporating. Water was never just a story, it was the storyteller. And when you leave this life, one day softly, your body will return to the earth, and the water inside you will move on. It will rise, drift, fall again. It will become rain, then river, then life again. Not as you, but because of you, and nothing will be lost, only transformed, because water does not end. Only we do. And even then, only for a moment. And so we sit, you, me, all of us. Just a body, just a breath, just water held for a little while in the shape of a human. And it's strange, isn't it? How something so vast, so ancient, so wild could find its way into something so fragile and stay and move and pulse quietly in our veins, asking for nothing more than care, than remembrance, a moment of stillness where we finally notice it. Because water is always there, waiting, beneath your skin, beneath your feet, above your head. It surrounds you, it fills you, it is you. It does not care who you are. It does not care how much you earn or what you believe. It will give itself to you freely. It always has, it always will, until we forget how to receive it. But we haven't forgotten, not completely. We still lean into the sound of rain. We still pause beside rivers. We still ache when droughts come. We still understand, somewhere deep and unspoken, that we are not separate from the flow, we are the flow. And maybe, just maybe, this is what water wants us to remember most. Not that we should worship it or fear it or even control it, but that we should honour it, notice it, move with it, like the waves, like the mist, like the quiet way it returns again and again and again. So when you wake tomorrow and fill your glass, remember this: you are holding the ocean, you are holding time, you are holding 1 billion years of memory, passed from sky to soil, from leaf to cloud, from glacier to breath. And in that glass is the very reason you are here. And when you lift it, slowly with care, let it be more than hydration. Let it be reverence, let it be connection, let it be a soft, silent thank you to the thing that made all life possible, to the thing that asks for nothing but gives you everything. And even now, as you sit with that sip still inside you, the story keeps unfolding, in your breath, in your bloodstream, in your memory. You begin to notice how much of your life has been shaped by something you cannot hold for long. Every bath that soothed you, every storm that made you stop and watch, every cup of tea shared across silence, every puddle you jumped in as a child, every time your mother wiped your tears, every time someone whispered "drink this" when you were sick or scared or tired. Water has always arrived when words could not. It has been there in your beginnings, in your healing, in your grief. It has held your history more gently than you have. It has never needed to be thanked, yet it has never stopped giving. And perhaps that is what makes it holy. Not that it's rare, but that it's constant, quiet, humble, unseen until you need it. And then everything depends on it. And isn't that how love works too? Isn't that how time moves? Isn't that how meaning flows through this life? Not with loud declarations, but with presence, with returning, with soft things doing the hardest work day after day after day. Water doesn't shout, it shapes. Water doesn't race, it remembers. Water doesn't ask for more. It becomes enough. And maybe that's all we need to do too, because what began in silence, in the first steam rising off a cooling world, has found its way here, to you, to this body made of stories and salt. And that's the beauty of it. That something so ancient, so vast, so infinite would choose to pass through you, to become part of your day, your drink, your breath, and then move on, as if to say, I trust you. Not to hold it forever, but to carry it well, to honour it while it stays, and to let it go when it must continue. And so you do. You drink, you breathe, you move, and water moves with you, never clinging, never rushing, never judging, only flowing, only listening, only being. And in that rhythm you begin to understand that this isn't just the story of water. It's the story of being alive. It's the story of learning how to flow, through change, through time, through everything. It's the story of how the smallest thing can carry the greatest weight. It's the story of how something invisible can hold the memory of the world. It's the story of you And like water, you're always becoming, always returning, always enough. And in the quiet of that flow, time softens. What once felt linear, beginning, middle, end, begins to blur. You realize there is no final moment, only movement. The lake becomes the cloud becomes the rain becomes the root becomes the fruit, and the fruit becomes you. And so nothing is wasted, nothing is lost. It only becomes something else, something equally sacred, equally real. And perhaps that's the most comforting truth water offers us, that impermanence is not the same as disappearance. You are still here, in every pulse of the tide, in every silver thread of morning dew, in the deep wells that sleep beneath desert stone, in the breath of whales, in the cry of birds circling before the rain, in the quiet hush of a hand washing another, with tenderness and care. Your essence carried, not as burden, not as weight, but as gift, as memory, as grace. Because water is the world's way of holding on to the things it cannot say aloud, the secrets too gentle for words, the prayers never spoken, the love that never had a name. It gathers these, holds them, swirls them quietly through its body, and shares them again, in rhythm, in light, in silence. You may never know the life your story will touch, but water will carry it just the same. Not for praise, not for recognition, but because that's what water does. It carries the truth, and even when we forget how to speak it, it carries the light. Even when the sky forgets how to shine, it carries you, even when you forget how to hold yourself. And one day, maybe far from now, someone will step into a river, or walk through the rain, or cup their hands in a stream, and in that touch something deep will move, something ancient, something tender. They won't know it's you, but they'll feel less alone, and that will be enough. And in that gentle recognition, that whisper through the water, something inside them will shift, not loudly, not suddenly, but like sunlight returning to a room long shaded. They may pause, not knowing why, they may breathe deeper, slower, as if their body remembered something their mind had long let go, that they too are made of water, that they too are part of this endless lineage of movement, of giving, of becoming. And in that breath you will be there, not in form but in feeling, not in voice but in stillness, because water holds more than memory, it holds presence. You become the quiet comfort in someone's evening tea, the cool shock of a mountain spring against tired feet, the mist that rests on someone's lashes as they look toward a sky too big for words. You become part of their story just as others became part of yours. You are not a drop lost in the ocean, you are the ocean experienced in a drop, a note in the symphony, a wave in the tide, a breath in the wind, and the world, vast and old and turning, keeps making space for you. So let go of the idea that you must be remembered by name. Let go of the fear that you'll vanish when the world moves on. You're already everywhere, in rivers and rain, in clouds and creeks, in the soft fog rolling across fields at dawn, in the salt that lingers on skin after the sea. In every act of washing, watering, healing, holding, you return, over and over and over again. And this, perhaps, is the most beautiful truth water leaves us with, that nothing whole is ever gone. It simply becomes invisible for a while, waiting, moving, preparing to be felt again. And so when the world seems too heavy, sit near water. When your heart aches and no words will come, let water speak for you. When you don't know where you're going next, watch how it flows. And when you feel like you've lost yourselves, remember that you've always been here, just moving, just transforming, just like water. And in that transformation there is peace, not the peace of stillness, but the peace of trust, in the motion, in the cycle, in the return. You learn slowly that not everything broken must be fixed, not every stance must be filled, not every current must be fought. Some things must simply be felt, through, released. Water has always known this. It never resists the shape of what holds it. A glass, a riverbed, a cupped hand, it yields, and in that yielding it finds power. Strength not in struggle, but in surrender. And from that surrender, freedom. You are free here too, free to change, to rise and fall and rise again, free to be clear or cloudy, fast or slow, shallow or deep. You don't have to be one thing forever. You don't have to hold your form, you only have to move, to feel, to listen. Because when you do, When you follow the path of water, not in direction but in wisdom, you begin to soften. You begin to remember that life is not a ladder, but a tide, not a line, but a circle. And your role is not to reach, but to return. To return to wonder, to return to presence, to return to the sacred simplicity of the moment, this moment, where water moves through you asking for nothing but your awareness. And as you return, you may find that the world too becomes softer. The sharpness fades, the noise dulls, the rush quiets. You begin to notice the beauty and slowness, in the way light curls across a lake at dusk, in the way droplets gather patiently on a leaf before falling, in the way the rain never arrives too early or too late, only exactly when it's meant to. You realize you are not late, you are not lost, you are not too much or not enough. You are water, learning how to remember yourself. And what a quiet joy it is, this remembering, to feel yourself not as a separate thing, but as part of a grand, silent harmony that began long before you and will continue long after. You begin to see it in everything, in the way a river doesn't mourn its banks as it moves beyond them, in the way clouds release what they cannot hold, in the way waves meet the shore, not to stay but to touch, to kiss, and then to leave. And suddenly you understand love does not always mean holding on. Sometimes love is letting go, sometimes it is becoming something else, and trusting you are still whole, even in your change. You start to live differently after that. You speak with more care, you walk a little slower, you look longer at puddles, at streams, at the wet fingerprints left behind on glass. You begin to feel the sacred in the smallest things, the way tea steams upward like a whispered prayer, the way the sound of rain taps out a lullaby against the window, the way someone offers you a drink not out of habit but out of love, and you say thank you more often, not out loud always, but inwardly, silently, deeply, with your breath, with your being, and water, patient as ever, answers without speaking. It glows in moonlight. It settles into your silence. It dances on your skin as mist. It fills the air after rain and the space between moments. It does not need applause. It does not need permission. It simply is. And in being, it teaches you how to be too. No rush, no performance, no arrival, just presence, just movement, just the endless practice of becoming, undoing, and becoming again. And maybe that is what water has always been trying to tell us, not through thunder or flood or roar, but through the softest ripple, that this life is not a task to complete, but a current to surrender to, that your purpose isn't to resist the flow, but to join it, to trust it, to let it carry you home. And what is home really, if not the place where you finally allow yourself to be seen? Not for what you've done or become, but for what you already are. Water knows this. It sees without eyes, feels without fingers, holds without weight. It knows your truest shape, not the one you show the world, but the one that emerges when you are alone, when you are tired, when you are honest. That version of you, quiet, real, trembling, is the one water welcomes most. It does not ask you to be polished. It asks you to be present. And in its presence you begin to forgive, not just others, yourself, the mistakes, the things you couldn't carry, the words you never spoke, the versions of you that had to break in order to let the light in. You realize that now, that water has always known how to hold grief, how to cradle sorrow without drowning in it. A river is full of endings, and still it moves. Still it reflects the sun. So you start to carry your grief differently, not as a wound, but as water, fluid, changing, alive. You let it flow through you, you let it soften you, you stop fighting the tide and begin to let it teach you. And suddenly you are not alone in your sorrow. You are part of something older, something shared, the aching, beautiful truth that everything you lose becomes part of what you are. And in this gentle unraveling, something remarkable happens. You begin to trust yourself again. You trust that you are allowed to begin. You trust that you are allowed to be soft. You trust that nothing you've ever been has been wasted. You trust that life is not about reaching the shore, but learning how to float. And as you float, held by the water, by the silence, by the story itself, you realize you've never really left home. You were always here, in the current, in the breath, in the story that began before language and will outlast even memory. You were always water, learning how to remember you are whole. And in that wholeness, there is no rush to prove, no need to grasp, to cling, to shape yourself into something more acceptable. Because water doesn't compete. It doesn't rush to be first or louder or more noticed. It simply finds the lowest place, the quietest place, and fills it with grace. You begin to do the same. You begin to recognize that the world doesn't need you to be spectacular. It just needs you to be real. Like water is real. Like the ocean is vast and honest and never once apologized for its depth. And so you stop apologizing for your own. You let your depths rise. You let your silences speak. You let yourself be more than surface. You stop fearing the dark places inside you, the sadness, the uncertainty, the longing, because you realize they are not your weakness. They are your aquifers, the underground rivers that have kept you alive without being seen. And now you let them rise. You let yourself become a place where stillness is sacred, where being unseen is not failure but freedom. You understand now that the most profound parts of life often happen in quiet, the way seeds split open in soil, the way hearts shift in silence, the way water changes stone with nothing but time, and suddenly you see it everywhere. In the morning condensation that coats your window, the breath of the earth soft and invisible. In the rhythm of your heartbeat, an ocean pulsing through the chambers of your chest. In the way you cry, not out of weakness, but because your soul needed to overflow. Everywhere, water reminds you, you do not have to hold it all. You just have to let it move through you. And when it does, when you surrender to its motion, you don't disappear. You become vast. You become timeless. You become the river that carved the valley, the cloud that cooled the fire, the drop that nourished the seed. And you finally understand to be like water is not to be small, but to be eternal. And when you become eternal in that way, not endless in form, but infinite in presence, the weight you've carried begins to lift. You realize you were never meant to hold everything forever. You were meant to let things pass through, emotions, seasons, moments, even people. You were meant to receive, to feel and to release, like rain into soil, like snow into stream, like sorrow into silence. This isn't letting go as loss, it's letting go as transformation. You stop clinging to the way things were. You stop fearing what might be. Instead, you begin to trust what is. You trust that the current has carried you this far for a reason. You trust that even the sharpest bends were part of the shape you were becoming. You stop asking, when will I arrive, and begin whispering, where do I flow next? Because water never arrives. It just becomes. And you are becoming. Becoming someone who moves with grace, even through grief. Becoming someone who knows stillness isn't the absence of motion, but the presence of peace. Becoming someone who understands that presence is more powerful than permanence. And through this gentle becoming, something awakens in you, a quiet reverence for life in all its forms. You start seeing every puddle as sacred, every drop as a teacher. You watch the way waves gather and recede and think, this is how love works too. You notice how rivers never travel alone. They carry sediment, memory, light. You begin to see yourself the same way, not as a single moment, but a long, beautiful accumulation of stories flowing together. You are no longer just surviving the world. You are part of its rhythm. You are part of its song. You are water, not trying to escape the world, but to become one with it. And for the first time in a long time, you feel free. And freedom, you now understand, isn't found in distance or escape. It's found in alignment. In being so deeply connected to your own nature that you no longer resist what is. You flow with it, around obstacles, through shadows, beneath noise. You stop fighting the tide and start listening to its music, even when it's quiet, even when it pulls you somewhere unfamiliar, because you trust now, not in outcomes but in motion, not in certainty but in presence. And that is the kind of peace that cannot be shaken. You start to feel this rhythm in your body, in the way your breath deepens, in the way your shoulders soften, in the way your feet, once anxious to move, now know how to be still. The same stillness found in mountain lakes at dawn. The same stillness that hovers between raindrops before they fall. You are no longer afraid of quiet. You welcome it. You walk through your days like a river walks through a canyon, with patience, with reverence, with the quiet power of something that has already survived. And what once felt like pressure to be more, to do more, to become, becomes instead a question. How gently can I be? How softly can I speak to myself? How openly can I move through the world without needing to conquer it? Because water never conquers, and yet it shapes the earth. It does not shout, and yet it sings to every living thing. It does not demand space, and yet space is made for it. And now so it is with you. You don't have to force your place in the world. You only need to arrive as you are and stay. Let your stillness speak. Let your softness ripple outward. Let your quiet become a source of strength, not shame, because that's what water has always been. Not a flood of power, but a steady reminder that the most powerful thing in the world is the one that returns. Again and again and again. And so you return, not to who you were, but to who you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the need to prove. You return like the tide returns to the shore, not to stay, but to touch, to remember, to belong. And in this return, you no longer need to be more than you are. You don't need to rush. You don't need to rise. You're enough even as you move, even as you rest, even as you change. Because now you understand that even the quietest stream has a destination. Even the smallest puddle reflects the sky. Even the tiniest drop, when seen with love, carries the shape of the entire ocean. And so do you. You carry everything, and the love you gave, the pain you held, the dreams that didn't unfold, the ones that still might. It's all inside you, all moving, all becoming something beautiful, even if the world hasn't noticed yet. But you notice. You've learned how to see the sacred in the slow, the holy in the hidden. You've learned to wait like water does, without resentment, without rush. To trust the process of being reshaped by time and pressure and gravity. To let go of what no longer fits, to carve new paths through stone if you must, to become softer and stronger at once. And in that softness, you begin to feel others differently too. You see the currents beneath their words, the rivers behind their eyes, the hidden lakes of grief they carry, the monsoons of joy they barely know how to name. You stop expecting them to be still. You let them move like you move. You let them change. You let them flow. And in doing so, you offer the greatest gift one being can give another: space. The space to be like water, to rise, to fall, to return. And when you look at the world now, you no longer see separation. You see one giant cycle of remembering. Oceans turning into rain, rain turning into rivers, rivers turning into skin, skin turning into tears, tears turning back to sea. You smile quietly because you finally see the truth. You were never meant to hold the ocean. You were meant to be the ocean, in motion. And being the ocean in motion means learning how to trust the ebb as much as the flow. To know that sometimes you'll feel full, vibrant, vast, brimming with purpose, and other times you'll feel like the tide pulling back, invisible, quiet, empty. But now you no longer fear those low tides. You no longer judge your stillness, because you know the sea never truly disappears. It simply draws inwards to gather strength, to breathe, to become something deeper. And so do you. You've stopped chasing the horizon. You've stopped racing the clock. You've begun to live like water, shaped by what it moves through, yet never defined by what it leaves behind. You've realized that life isn't about clinging to one state, one identity, one story. It's about becoming over and over and over. It's about flowing between joy and grief, presence and uncertainty, holding and releasing, and knowing you are no less yourself in any of it. You don't resist the changing of seasons anymore. You feel them like tides inside your chest. You feel the winter in your bones, the monsoon in your blood, the drought in your silence. And through it all, you remain, not untouched, but unbroken. Water cannot be broken. It only changes shape. And the world begins to reflect this back to you. The way light moves across a pond in the morning. The way rivers shimmer as they bend. The way rain collects in your palm, temporary, delicate, eternal. It all speaks the same language now, the language of letting go, the language of returning, the language of trust. And in that language you find freedom, not the kind that comes from escaping the world, but the kind that comes from belonging to it, deeply, quietly, fully. You walk softer, speak slower, listen longer. You live your life like a stream moves through the forest and aware of everything, but burdened by nothing, carrying what is needed, leaving what is not, trusting that every twist, every turn, every fall and rise is part of the path. You do not need to see the sea to know it's waiting. You do not need to understand every drop to honor the whole. You just have to keep moving, like water does, like you were always meant to. And so you do. You move, not with urgency, but with grace, with the calm knowing of something ancient. You don't rush to get somewhere anymore. You understand that where you are right now is enough, that the puddle beneath your feet is as sacred as the ocean beyond the horizon, that the cup in your hand holds the same wonder as the thunderstorm, that the tears in your eyes are no less holy than the waterfalls people travel the world to see. You begin to treat each moment as water treats the land, gently, with curiosity. You don't force your way through anymore. You listen for the softest opening, the smallest invitation. You move around obstacles instead of breaking them. And somehow, without even trying, you go farther. You go deeper. You reach places you never could by force. Because softness, you've learned, is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's endurance. It's survival. You see now that everything you are, every joy, every loss, every breath, has been water's story all along. You're not just learning about it. You're remembering what it's like to be it, to reflect without judgment, to flow without apology, to hold without needing to change, to be clear sometimes and stormy others, and always, always honest. And when you meet others on their journey, you offer them the same gift. You no longer ask them to be still, or to be better, or to be more like you. You simply sit beside them, like a river sits beside a traveller, and let them rest. You let them speak in fragments. You let them cry without explanation. You let them be unfinished, because you remember how water treated you when you were broken. It didn't fix you. It held you. It didn't speak, and it stayed. And in that staying, in that presence, you found your way back. And now, without effort, you've become that presence for others. You are not just made of water. You are made of what water taught you. To be patient, to be kind, to return, always to return. And in that returning, you no longer seek permanence. You seek meaning. You understand that nothing good has to last forever to be real. A raindrop on your hand, a glance from someone you love, a breath taken in silence beneath a grey sky. All of it passes. All of it ends. But that doesn't make it any less sacred. It makes it more so. Precious not in its duration, but in its presence, just like water, here, then gone, then here again. You stop needing life to make sense. You stop demanding clarity from every storm. Instead, you watch the way rain falls without asking why. You feel the way mist softens even the hardest edge. You marvel at the way oceans churn with chaos and still cradle the moon in their pull. And you begin to live like that, holding contradiction with grace, making room for the mess and the magic at once. You stop dividing your life into before and after. You start seeing it all as one flow, one current, winding, twisting, returning. And when fear rises, because it still will, you no longer run from it. You greet it the way the shore greets the wave, steady, open, unafraid. You let it come, you let it break, you let it pass. Because you know now that fear, like water, loses its power when it's allowed to move. It becomes smaller when you stop trying to contain it. It becomes gentle when you stop trying to fight it. You've become the kind of person who makes space for emotion, for healing, for uncertainty. You no longer rush people through their pain. You no longer rush yourself through yours. You hold it, like a lake holds the sky, not changing it, just allowing it to be reflected. You learn to sit with what hurts until it softens, and eventually it does. Always it does. Because even pain wants to move, even sorrow wants to be set free. And when it does, when it flows out of you like a long-held breath, you are left with something quiet. Not emptiness, but peace, a wide, calm space inside your chest. The kind of space where something new can grow, not quickly, not loudly, but truly. Like a spring rising in a place that has forgotten water, like forgiveness, like beginning again. And so it ends. Not with a splash, but with a return to stillness. You sit quietly now beside the river of all that you are. You don't need to move. You don't need to speak. You simply listen to the hush of your breath, to the memory in your blood, to the ancient rhythm that has carried you here, the rhythm of water, the rhythm of life. It cradles you now, gently, completely, as it always has, because the story of water was never separate from you. It was you. It is. And as you rise, whenever you do, you carry it with you, in your bones, in your gaze, in your gentleness. You move forward, not to escape the world, but to meet it with softness, with reverence, with the quiet power of something that knows how to flow, how to bend, how to return. But you were never just a drop! You were the whole tide remembering its name, and now you do.